And God has sent me some wonderful people to work for me, and they're happy, or they wouldn't be there as long as they are.
Yeah.
But if they penalize me where I can't make any profit, But I want to ask you one other thing.
Yes.
It seems that he has I don't want to get radical, but I want to say he does not appreciate Israel. And this scares me more than anything. I feel like anybody that turns their back on Israel could very easily perish.
There are two things that I'm convinced this president does not appreciate Israel. Just look at the actions. He threw Benjamin Netanyahu under the bus on his first visit here. The latest information about the administration leaking the relationship that Israel was creating with another country to give them closer access to Iran in order to defend themselves, or even if they wanted to go on the offensive. So I'm convinced of that also. When I was in Israel last August, I met with one of the deputy prime ministers, and it was a very eye-opening experience. For 45 minutes we talked, and he was telling me about they are not convinced that this president cares that much about Israel, and they are very concerned about if they have to defend themselves, what the United States is going to do, because quite frankly, quote, they don't trust this president. The second thing that this president and his administration does not appreciate or understand is the free market system. Just what you've been alluding to relative to your business. It appears that everything they do makes it harder for businesses to thrive rather than easier for businesses to thrive. I happen to now believe, I didn't believe this at first, my friend Neil Boyce had to keep working on me, that this president is a big government socialist. And you know what socialism is. Slow road to communism.
I've been around the world 12 times. My parents were missionaries in Asia. I used to go every 90 days. For business, though, not for them. I did support them. But when you go to a third world country who has communism, socialism, you stand in line at the post office 2.5 hours. At the bank, at least 2.5 hours. Bread, half a day, sometimes. Now, China's changing a lot. It's getting a lot better. Their morals are a little better, and they're trying to treat their people better. But that's the way it is in these other countries. If you don't like standing in line, you need to get away from this administration.
Exactly.
Because it will create shortages. It eliminates the need or the desire to succeed. I don't have the answers, but I do know that if we all could stop this wedge between us called racism. I minister to a lot of people of color, and we have agreed, several hundred now, that not let that wedge get between us. If I offend them, they're going to tell me. I'm not going to let them offend me.
Right.
But I want them to understand we cannot succeed with the wedge between us.
That reminds me, I'm often asked by college students sometimes, because I grew up in Atlanta in the South in the 60s, and I saw segregation and all of that stuff, and then I tried to climb the corporate ladder. So I'd have students ask me, Mr. Cain, how did you deal with racism when you were trying to climb the corporate ladder? My answer, I didn't. If they saw me as a black person and not as a fellow employee, that was their problem. I didn't allow that to become my issue. I didn't focus on that. I focused on performance.
Well, I like what you said. I heard you say, and I paraphrase. I can't say exactly, but you did say I had an agenda to get an education and to be productive.
Yes,
that's basically what I got.
That's right.
And you did. You were a writer, and if you can't read and write, you can't do anything.
Right.
But the whole thing, is you spent those years, instead of marching for rights, you earned them.
You got it.
And we have come a long way. Sometimes I forget how bad it was.
Yes.
We had a maid, and my dad wouldn't call her a maid. She was a housekeeper. But because the mills wouldn't hire her, she had to work for us.
Yeah.
May Grace is her name. She died about a year and a half ago. I pray prayers around the world that May Grace taught me.
Wow.
Now, she had a belt she could whip me. She cooked our food, and my dad was from upstate New York, and she sat down and ate with us. And he would tell me, he said, now, this is in the 50s. He said, we trust her with the most valuable thing we have, which is you.
Yeah.
But we can't sit and eat with her. She can prepare that meal, but she can't sit here. She took our laundry home and did it in her house. We just didn't understand, but I didn't invent that. And I thank God that Martin Luther King did what he did.
Yes.
But I do feel like that he also had eternal souls that he was concerned about.
Yes.
And I think that's what we need to get into.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why he was successful.
One night on my radio show, I was doing a special recognition of the founding fathers. Mm-hmm. And I had a guy call up, and he identified himself as a black gentleman. He said, Mr. Cain. I said, yes. He said, I'm a black American. I'm an African American. I said, okay. He said, I can't believe that you're sitting there talking about what a wonderful thing our founding fathers did for this country. I said, why? Well, some of them had slaves. I said, so you want me to still be angry about that? I said, sir, let me share with you one of the greatest things about this country, and Paul, you can use this, is our ability to change.
Yes.
Look at how much change we have endured in our short history of 235 years. These countries where you describe people standing in line, they are not changing. All of the fighting going on in Syria right now is because the people want to change, but the dictator does not want to change. Does not want to change. It's one of the strengths of this country.
Netanyahu said that we could win the world with American TV. Mm. He said everywhere you go, and he said even Iran, they love Happy Days.
Yeah.
They love Fonzie.
Right.
And that 90210, he said Hollywood could actually help us convince the world. Because what happened at Tiananmen Square,
right,
and what's happening in Syria, they've come here and gone to school.
Yeah.
And they want to go home, and they won't have that.
They want to be happy.
Yeah.
I met with a gentleman from Japan earlier this week. There is a Japanese Tea Party movement going on. Believe it or not, in Japan. I was at CPAC, and this gentleman, along with his interpreter, ended up coming by a booth that we had set up. And they wanted to meet me because of having run for president, being often spoken at tea parties. And they actually have a movement, I don't remember the exact name, something about the Japanese Happiness Party. People are looking for happiness.
Yeah.
And it's happiness from within. That's what your teachings are all about, is having that happiness from within.
We need to send him our poster. We have a poster, then we do a seminar with it, and it's 21 suggestions for extreme happiness.
I love it.
The very first one on there is the person you marry will determine 90% of your happiness. Mm-hmm. Now, in the seminar, we say don't go out and get a divorce. Now, if your spouse in the morning is married to the wrong person, you need to become the right person.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of neat things in there.
That's great.
21 suggestions for extreme happiness. I should have brought it. We'll send it to you.
Send me that.
But you're an example that we appreciate.
Thank you.
And you have confirmed that a racist is a specialist. They specialize. Mm-hmm. They're in the ist family, and they specialize in hating a certain race or someone doesn't look like them.
Yeah.
So if you happen to love someone of that race, it'd be very difficult to be a racist.
Right.
Because even your race, there are people you don't like. And what we've had is they pushed us because we disagree with someone of color, then we're racist. And I don't like that because I am prejudiced. The Army's prejudiced against people with flat feet. I mean, everybody's prejudiced.
I'm prejudiced against stupid people.
I profiled when
I agree with that.
They're ruining America.
I profiled my wife when I married my wife. Profiling is part of everything. I don't know how you're going to get around it. Now,
Yep.
if you do it with hate in your heart, that's different.
That's different.
But it doesn't. You don't have to. Anything you do with hate is wrong. So
Yes.
Anyway. Thank you so much. And,
It's my
is there
pleasure.
anything you'd like to say to encourage us to keep on with our movement?
Keep on with your movement because you're reaching people, and it's been my experience that a lot of the people that you impact, you may never hear from, because for every one that might send an email or make a call, you probably have another dozen or more that have been impacted. And since you're going to share with me your 21 things for happiness, I'm going to share with you my 3.
Okay.
You know, I had this thing about 3s and 9s
yeah,
and 9s and 3s.
When things happen in dreams.
Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
There you go. Amen. Amen.
And someone, it was when I was living in Omaha, Nebraska, the pastor of the church, I'll never forget, he gave a definition of happiness one day. And it hit me like lightning, and I never forgot. And so he said happiness is 3 things. Something to do. Nobody wants to sit around and be idle. Someone to love. And thirdly, something to hope for. If you're missing one of those, you're not happy.
Yeah.
And the biggest one that people suffer from the most is hope. Real hope.
The people that came through the Depression,
Yes.
my dad said, believed in family, hard work, and integrity.
That's it.
And that's similar to what you said.
That's exactly right.
You have to, those, if any of those are missing,
Yep.
then you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it.
And it's so easy now to get an education that you don't need. And I think that it takes an education
Yep.
to know what kind of education you need.
That's right. That's right.
And that's one of the things that's in that list.
Well, thank you all for having me.
God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
so much.
God
It's
bless
a
you.
pleasure.
Now, Josh is our favorite person. He's the son I
Yes.
never had. And if
Yeah.
there's anything though we can help you with, if you think there's anything that this guy can do for you or Joe, we're ready.
Great. We do appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless
Appreciate it.
Thank
sir.
you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you,
Thanks.
sir. God bless
Thank
you.